Hi! In this video, what we're going to do is have a look at why your merge function in Power Query, either in Excel or in Power BI, isn't quite working as you want it to. So first of all, let's have a quick recap of what a merge is. So merging brings together two different datasets and joins them together using a key column. So that's a piece of information which is common within both datasets. And we can see on screen that we're taking dataset 1, dataset 2 and popping it together to create dataset 3. And the key column in this case is the product column. Now the product column, the key column, makes sure the right information is brought across in each row in your third dataset. Now what we can find sometimes is that instead of getting the right information on each row, what we actually get is some blank values in our merged in columns, or Power Query might just create an error and not allow you to do the merge at all. So there are three steps that we need to go through to make sure that we get the right information in using our merge. So what we're going to do is have a look at some examples. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and join together some different queries here. So we've got 4 examples to go through, 2 queries for each. Now the information that we're going to join together is pretty much the same, but there are some slight differences between each of the data sets that we've got. So first of all, we're going to have a bash at actually showing what a merge should look like. So we've got some PO information here, simple PO report. We've got a PO number, a PO date, and a PO supplier. And then if I go to the correct invoice query, we've got an invoice number, a PO number, and a value. Now the key column, the information that we're going to use to join the two queries together is the PO number column. So to merge the two queries together, I'm going to go back to correct POs 1 because I want that to be my base query. I'm on the Home tab, so I'll then go to Merge Queries. I can then select my key column in the correct POs 1 query. Then I bring in my second dataset. And then choose the PO number column again, the key column, to merge the two queries together. Okay, now right at the bottom, we can see that we've got a nice little green tick, which tells us that Power Query's done the work that we want it to. It's gone through the merge, there's been no issues. And then it says that the selection matches 10 out of 10 rows. And that means that Power Query's been able to find the information in each of the key columns to bring the two datasets together properly. So I can click OK here. After that, we just need to expand this new column. And there we go, we've now got the invoice number and the invoice value on each of the correct lines. So that's what a merge should do, that's what it should look like. So let's start having a look at some problems that you might encounter. So let's have a look at problem POs 1. Okay, so we've got the same information that we had in the merge that just worked out properly. We've got PO number, we've got PO date, we've got PO supplier, there's no different data in here. So let's have a look at problem invoice 1. So here we go, again we've got the invoice number, we've got the PO number column again, and we've got the value column. But this time, the PO prefix of the purchase order is in lowercase. Now if we look back in the problem POs 1, the PO in the prefix in the PO number column this time is in uppercase. And this is enough to throw Power Query off. Power Query is case sensitive, which means to do the merge, we need to make sure that the case, if you've got some text values in your key columns, are in the same case. So this is quite an easy one to solve, but let's see what happens if we try and force this through. I'll go to Merge Queries again. I'll select my key column. And then select my new invoice dataset. And then select my PO number column. Now we can see down here at the bottom that there is the green tick again, but don't be fooled. That just means that Power Query has done the merge as it expected and gone through all the data. We can see that it says the selection matches 0 out of 10 rows from the first table, which means that if we now try and click OK, all we're going to do is get a whole load of blank values at the end of the day. So there we go. Now we just got null values in our merged in columns. So how can we fix this? So what we need to do is we need to make sure the case of both the PO number in the problem POs query and the problem invoice query is the same. So we can do that in 2 different ways. The easiest way is to go to the query that you're merging in and then change the case of this query. So I'll go to PO number. then go to transform, and then go to format, and then go to uppercase. There we go. That's changed the case of PO to the uppercase, where it was lowercase. And if I go back to problem POs 1, we can now see that the null values have disappeared, and Power Query has brought in the correct information into the invoice number and value column. Now, alternatively, what you can do is change the case in PO number in this query, in your base query, rather than changing the case in the query that you're bringing in. So let's just get rid of changing case in problem invoice 1. As we can see, we're now back to having some null values, okay? So let's instead try and change the case in PO number in this query and put it down to lowercase. Okay, now what I've done here is demonstrated what can be a key error when trying to perform this kind of transformation. I've changed the case of the PO number column, the key column, but I've done it after the merge has happened, which means that we're trying to change the problem, well, trying to close a barn door after a horse has galloped off into the sunset. What we need to do is we need to bring that lowercase step and put it before the merged queries step to make sure that the case is changed before we try and merge our queries together. Okay, so now I've brought the lowercase step up above the merge queries. If we just go down to the final step in this query, we can now see that we've got the right information. We've got the right information in our merged in columns. So check number 1, when you're trying to work out why your merge isn't working, make sure that you've got the correct case if you've got any text values in your queries that you're merging together. Let's have a look at problem POs 2. Now this time there is some slightly different information in the base query. We can see that in the key column, the prefix PO, that's disappeared. We've now just got some numeric values. Let's have a look at problem invoice 2. Right, same thing's happened in our PO number column. We haven't got the prefix PO anymore. We're just left with some numbers. So let's try and do this merge. Right, this time, Power Query isn't actually allowing us to do this merge. And the reason for this is although the values are the same, the data type in each of the columns is different. And we can see this because in problem POs 2, in our base query, PO number, in the PO number column, the values are in italics, which means that this data set in the key column is a whole number data type. In the second query, in problem invoice 2, we can see because the values are not in italics, that the PO number column is formatted as a text type. And we can see right at the bottom that this gives us this gives Power Query an error message. So we need to select columns of the same type. So they've either got to both be number or they've got to both be text. So let's click Cancel to come out of this menu. Now we just need to change one of the columns, one of the key columns, to be the same case as the key column in the other query. So seeing as I'm in problems POs 2, I will change this one to text. Okay, there we go. Now we've got both key columns will be in the same data type, so I can try this merge again. Now we can see here at the bottom, nice big green tick, selection matches 10 out of 10 rows from the first table, all good. Okay, so the second check that you need to go through is make sure that the key columns in both of your queries are in the same data type. So let's have a look at our final check. So here we are in problems POs 3, same information as we had in correct POs 1, same PO number, same PO date, same PO supplier. And then if we look in problem invoice 3, well, to be honest, it looks exactly the same. It's got invoice number, PO number, value, you've got your PO prefix, it's not in different data types, there's no difference in terms of case. So let's try and have a go at merging these two. Right, now this looks weird because Well, all the data looks the same. The data in the key column looks exactly the same. You've got your green tick at the bottom, selection matches 0 out of 10 rows in the first table. So this is very bizarre. Let's have a look at what happens if we if we push this through. Right, we've got our null values again. So something is different. And this is the problem that generally trips people up the most. Now, what we've got here is some trailing spaces in one of our key columns. Okay, so how can we check for that? So what we need to do is you can simply select one of the values in the PO number in the key column, and let's see what comes up. So right at the bottom, we get the value being brought up, and then I can just go down next to it and just click next to it. And you can see that our cursor comes up and there's no trailing spaces in this column. So let's check the same in problem invoice 3. I'll go down and select my value. And we can see here that there's a number of trailing spaces after the end of the numerical values. So it's here that the trailing spaces exist, and it's these that we need to get rid of. So how can we do that? So I will select my column, then I'll go to transform, then to format, and then to trim. So trim gets rid of all trailing spaces. I can then go back to problem POs 3. And we can see that once again, the correct values have been brought in to our base query. So there you go. Those are the 3 checks that you need to go through. First of all, make sure that you've got the right case or the same case between your 2 key columns in your 2 queries. Secondly, make sure you've got the right data types, the same data types in both the key columns. And finally, make sure you haven't got any trailing spaces in each of the key columns, and you should be away.